Hello everyone, hi! Welcome to me discussing my favorite books of 2025 in each category. My name is Maria, I'm a student of comparative literature, and if you are into slow, thoughtful, relaxing literature content, I hope you'll consider subscribing. And if you want more from me besides just my YouTube channel, I've also released 2 literature courses this year, one on French literature and the other one is a course on the topic of how one can read in order to get the most out of their books. I'll link both of them below this video and I hope you'll check them out if you haven't. So yeah, that's it for the preamble. Let's get into the categories. Number 1, my favorite reading accomplishment. So this has been unequivocally reading the first book of In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust in the original French. So if you are a regular viewer of this channel, you know that my dream would be to read all of Proust in French one day, because it's just the most beautiful writing I've ever come across. Like, nothing I've ever read quite hit me the way Proust hits me. And I have really worried that my dream of reading Proust in French will just kind of stay a pipe dream. Because though my French is decent, it's not as good as it could be. And Proust is really difficult to read in any language. So I worried that I'll be on my deathbed and I'll still be like, oh, I would like to read Proust in French one day. But the worm has turned and I've actually cracked into In Search of Lost Time in French for the first time this year in like a serious way, because of the Proust seminar I'm participating in at university. My professor said that it would be best if we read it in French, and I was just like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And I still can't believe that I actually made it through. I mean, it's been a real headache at times, but also just so rewarding. I just find it so transformative to read Proust. Like, the weeks that I've read this first part, I sometimes read like 30 or 40 pages a day, so I was really kind of deep into it, and it just felt like I was dissolving into the ether during that time. I don't want to be dramatic or anything, but I really feel like this book changes me. Like, it asks of me to change. I have to become more perceptive and more sensitive in order to even be able to continue with it. And now that the seal is broken, I'm confident that I will keep on reading Proust. I have to read part 2 over the holidays, so wish me luck. But yeah, this takes the cake for my favorite reading accomplishment. Next category, a book I wish I read but didn't get to. That would have to be The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This book is talked about so much at university, honestly. It's like this work of reference that is just mentioned all the time. And I really feel like I want to get around to finally reading it. I've wanted to read it with a friend this summer, but we were both too busy and we didn't get around to it. So yeah, I'll get to it eventually. The next category is called My Favorite Reading Experience / Memory. And that has to be undoubtedly meeting up with Nick for the first time this summer from the YouTube channel RE Dread. We've spent a couple of great days together in Vienna. We went to the house where Robert Musil lived. We went to the theater together and to bookstores. And he lives in Australia, right? So we have been in touch for a couple of years, but this was the first time we've actually met each other in person. And the reason that it was such a joy was because we just had so much to talk about. I don't have many people in my life that have such a similar taste in books and art as I do. Actually, not even so similar, but just a similar intensity of interest for those things. He just reads quite ferociously and also has experience of what it's like to make book YouTube videos, you know. So we just had so much to talk about. Like, we started blabbering and we didn't stop for like 2 or 3 days. That was great. We also have the same kind of unsavory sense of humor. Sometimes, you know, there's this match in personalities where when you meet another person, like every conversation just kind of goes off the rails in one way or another. Like that was us. Our conversations were basically 100% literary references and 0% poise. It was just great and cathartic, and I really wish I could see him every once in a while for coffee or something. He brought me a book from Dublin because he has spent Bloomsday there before he came to Vienna. And this is a copy of Ulysses, and the little note he left me says in the end, "As a small thank you for your time and work, I wanted to give you a beloved Bloomsday gift, a copy of Ulysses, plus a genuine 1904 penny. There is a chance that this very penny was in Joyce's pocket once upon a time. I hope you'll accept this timeless penny in exchange for your timeless thoughts, Nicholas." And then P.S. Isn't the cover of this book atrocious? It looks like one of those porn novels, which I suppose that's what Ulysses is. Next category, a book I didn't finish. This one goes to The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I already talked about it in my previous video, but any way you slice it, I'm just not into science fiction. The world building just kind of bores me, and I always feel like all there is like an intense amount of build up for the entire novel without a lot actually happening in the end. I have yet to read a sci-fi novel that makes me really get it. Or maybe I just never will, who knows. So yeah, I gave it a try, but I've only read 50 pages or so of this book. Moving on to a favorite new author that I discovered in 2025, Arthur Schnitzler. I read Lieutenant Gustl this year and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I'm kind of enamored with Schnitzler's writing. It's very stream of consciousness. You know, Lieutenant Gustl is considered to be the first great inner monologue in the history of German literature. Arthur Schnitzler was an Austrian modernist writer. He lived in Vienna, and he intrigues me so much, in fact, that my next university paper will probably be about him. If everything goes to plan, I'll be writing a comparative analysis of Arthur Schnitzler and Marcel Proust's usage of dreams in their novels. I would like to focus on the dream as a narratological device in the writings of both authors, and I'm stoked. Modernism really is turning out to be my favorite literary epoch. The next category is called Best Non-Fiction. So it would be very unsatisfying to watch this video if there were several books in every category. So in order for that not to happen, but me still having every book that I loved this year in this video, I had to cram 4 books into this category. And I'll make it quick because I've talked about them quite a bit in my previous video. Firstly, the complete essays by Michel de Montaigne. These are incredibly thoughtful, grounding, extraordinary, ordinary essays. Then we have How One Should Read a Book by Virginia Woolf, a wonderful speech originally by Woolf about being an active and engaged and demanding reader, and it's written in the most elegant and accommodating language. Such a beautiful, illuminating little read. And then Stolen Focus by Johann Hari, the book about our attention crisis, and the book to read if you are alive at all in 2025. I feel like this is just extremely relevant for the time we live in. Next category, an ambivalent read. For this category, I chose Mephisto by Klaus Mann. This novel is about a man whose name is Hendrik Höfgen, who is an actor during the Nazi regime, and he kind of adapts to the Nazi regime in order to better his position and keep his job as an actor. And I just can't make my mind up about this book. And the reason is that I have so much kind of information about this book that it's really difficult for me to just see it for what it is. Like, there are thick clouds around me that I cannot see through when I think about this book. One of the clouds, for example, is that this book is based on a true story. Hendrik Höfgen is a cover name for Gustav Gründgens, who Klaus Mann knew quite intimately in his own life. And then another cloud is like the crazy censorship story that is surrounding this novel. Like, it wasn't available to buy in Germany for many decades. And then another cloud that is in my field of vision is that Klaus Mann is Thomas Mann's son. So it's very difficult to not compare him to Thomas Mann. And then there's also all the expectations that I came to the book with. Like, this was the book I looked most forward to all year. Overall, I've been a little bit underwhelmed, and some of my expectations were met and others were not, but I just need a bit more time to let it sit and maybe go over it another time. So I don't know, it's just the jury is still out, and I don't know if it will ever come back in again, actually. Moving on to the favorite movies category. I have been so disappointed with movies this year. Not that I watch a lot of movies. I've maybe seen, 7 or so movies and series this year. But I feel like 5 of them were quite bad. Spearheading the bad movies category was definitely the new Frankenstein movie. I was like, so disappointed with this adaptation by Guillermo del Toro. I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly, but Frankenstein is one of my favorite books, and I understand that an adaptation doesn't have to be 100% faithful, right, to the original, but I just feel like the film misses so many of the core ideas of the novel for me. Like, in the film, Victor is really proud of his creation of the monster, and he keeps it captive and dominates it physically, It's like, what? And then also Elizabeth, who has a completely different role, suddenly falls in love with the monster for really no good reason or something. And also the grandfather is really accepting and loving of the monster, and it's the entire point of the book is that love and acceptance never happens, because the monster is constantly judged for the way he looks, and he never gets a chance to build any kind of connection. And then also in the movie, the monster suddenly reads the Bible. What are we doing? And the ending has probably frustrated me the most, where Victor asks the monster for forgiveness, and then the monster forgives him. It's again, the whole point of the book for me is that kind of closure and that kind of taking responsibility on Victor's part just never happened. So I feel like this movie could have been a real opportunity to, roll out the problems with AI or something. It's just a good time to read Frankenstein, to talk about Frankenstein, and to bring that story to so many people. But I feel like it completely missed the mark, and it just turns out to be this Hollywood reimagining of the story, which is superficial and unnuanced, and I don't know why they do it. I just don't understand why it's so hard to put Frankenstein to the screen. Just stick to the story. The story is really good, and Mary Shelley describes it really well. You can just, it would have been so much better if they would have just stuck to the way it was meant. So, yeah. The Frankenstein movie just doesn't hold a candle to the real thing. I'm feeling like personally offended. And then I've also been very disappointed this year by Bugonia by Giorgos Lanthimos. Again, not sure how to pronounce that name, sorry. I am usually a big fan of his movies. I mean, Kinds of Kindness was like my favorite movie of last year. He has such a unique kind of voice in film, I feel. But Bugonia, again, it started with such a good premise, so relevant for the time we live on, where conspiracy theories run rampant on the internet. So it starts really good, but then it just turns out the movie just wanted to be weird and different and cool and sensationalist without carrying a real message or something. That's how I feel about both of those movies. It's like they really could have been so great, so much potential and money and great actors like went into them, but all they are is like a flash in the pan. I'm like a vicious movie critic over here. I have seen a good miniseries though, Adolescence. It's been very popular. I mean, the story is horrible. It's about a 13-year-old boy who gets arrested for apparently having killed a girl. I'll spare you the rest. I think it's good to go into it without knowing too much. But it's just 4 episodes, and what's so like artistically interesting about this series is that every episode is filmed in one take. So there's no cuts. I just think it's really stunning to watch because the camera just rolls for 50 minutes and the actors and the cameraman, they have to do everything right. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have a second chance. You have to start all over again. It's just great because there's so much intimacy in those episodes, because it is like that in real life as well, right? We only have what is right here, right now, what is shown and talked about in front of our eyes. Like, we cannot cut back to what happened last night. So it's just an extraordinary concept, really well executed, great acting, really great acting, and a really strong message in my opinion. I really have nothing but good things to say about it. Next category is a new favorite character. Now, no one really springs to mind immediately. I've technically loved William of Baskerville from The Name of the Rose. For me, he really embodies reason and skepticism and a kind of relentless search for meaning. But then he ultimately has to kind of face the boundaries of human understanding when he's confronted with chaos. Like, I just think he's delightful. He reminds me of a person in my life that I love a lot. I think that is why. And of course, I've also loved the grandmother in Proust's In Search of Lost Time. But I've known both of these characters for longer than just 2025, and I'm trying hard to talk about more than The Name of the Rose and In Search of Lost Time here on this channel. So I've made a video not too long ago about all of my favorite literary characters of all time. So I'll link that up here in case you want to check it out. My favorite essay this year, I think, has been Why is Art So Boring by Alva Noe. I had to read this for my aesthetics course at university that centers the question of what art is. And this was just an introduction essay to kind of get our minds jogging. We didn't even talk about it that much, but the premise of the essay is quite simple. Noe says that art is boring on purpose, because we need boredom to get out of our normal mode of thinking. Art is just completely contrary to the mode that we're in for the rest of our lives. You know, we're always doing and ticking things off our list and trying to get somewhere, and then, you know, you go to a museum or you read a book and you just hit a wall because that mode of engaging with the world suddenly doesn't work anymore. And that's why art is so valuable, because in our adult lives we rarely deal with boredom anymore. And somehow that makes a lot of sense to me. So that's why I've kept thinking about this essay a lot. Moving on to the next category, best book purchases. There were a few good ones this year, but in the end it has to be this unexpected flea market find in Italy of the first translation into Italian of Proust's In Search of Lost Time. Now those are only books 2 to 5, I think. So I don't have them all. I would like to, but all in good time. And it's interesting because I'm not usually someone who... let me start differently. I'm very unprecious about books, usually. I don't revere the object of the book as highly as some people do, you know what I mean? I don't take my books down from the shelves like gingerly. I'm like, as long as I can read them and it's a good translation, I just don't really care what they look like. However, look at those beautiful editions. For some reason, those books really got me. They're so beautiful and old, and they're made out of like carton and linen. The covers were really plucking at my heartstrings, and I was just suddenly like, I need to own this. It's been very interesting to feel that. Moving on to my most challenging read of 2025, and that one goes to reading the poetry, the collected poems by Arthur Rimbaud as preparation for my French literature course. Arthur Rimbaud was this interesting, young, anti-rationalist poet. A bit of a complicated character. He started writing really young and initially in Latin. And he said that, quote, "The poet makes himself a seer by a long, prodigious and rational disordering of all the senses." And that confusion of the senses is really at the heart of his poetry. So, you as the reader end up feeling confused as well, and you just have to work at the poems a bit before they start revealing themselves to you. And me not being a very big reader of poetry and also being very impatient, this was challenging. So, long live this bilingual edition. That really helped getting me through. And I can recommend it. It's translated by Martin Sorrell, and this is the Oxford World Classics edition. And then the second to last category, my favorite quote of the year. Now, obviously, I have read many beautiful sentences this year that I could have picked, but the one that immediately sprung to mind when I thought of this category is the beginning of The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. I didn't even read that book this year, but we talked about it in my seminar about uncanny social criticism about Gothic fiction in the 20th and 21st century. And that beginning, it was like, my jaw was on the floor, so I'll read it to you. "The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but some day the piercing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age." To me, this quote really straddles the line between beauty and discomfort so well. Like that experience that we all have, that we just kind of find ourselves on this earth and we don't really know what lies beyond it and why we're here, and we're trying to figure it out and pierce it together. And there's this dark undercurrent to me in this quote that I think is very apparent, very doomy, but at the same time the language is so beautiful and the words almost serve as little glimmers of hope on the dark night sky or something. It's just, I can't stop thinking about it. It's just so beautiful. Okay, and then the last category, best books of the year. Now, that's been a really hard call to make this year because my reading year has been kind of episodic and a little bit frantic, and there just isn't one book that stands out that I haven't technically known for longer than just 2025. Like, I love The Name of the Rose and In Search of Lost Times, probably my favorite books of all time, but I've known them for longer. I also really liked Dracula. Where is it? Actually, Dracula is probably gonna be my surprisingly good read this year. It's just been delightful. I've also really liked Leutnant Gustl by Schnitzler, and I liked all the books that I mentioned in this video. It's just that none of them stand out as like the single greatest book of the year. What does stand out to me is that I'm very happy with how seriously I took reading this year. I challenged myself, I read diversely, I stayed on the ball when it was getting difficult. And I don't know, to me that's better than having like a clear winner in an arbitrary category in a fleeting YouTube video. So thank you for spending this time with me. I hope it was as enjoyable to you as it was for me to reflect on this reading year. I'll see you again very soon, and bye bye for now.